when you have to take work over from a team member. As a manager, you may think, I roll my eyes and get frustrated because now on top of managing, I have to do work that my team members can't do themselves. But knowing that as a manager, there are times that you're going to have to jump in. And there's a step that plenty of managers skip that can be incredibly helpful for your team members and for yourself. Now, I'll tell you what kicked off the topic for this video is the other day I was at a UPS store, and when I was waiting in line, a phone call came in and a new team member that had just started answered it. And she said to the manager, "We have a question about passport photos and I don't know how to answer it." And he's like, I'll take it over. And he actually took it and took it to the back. When he came back, she said, "So what was the answer?" I'm standing in line. I was invested as well. And he said, "No, it's okay. I took care of it." And she said, "Right, but what was the answer? I want to know so that I can answer it next time." And it was all about passport photos and whether basically someone could get around the system and get a passport photo done for free. And the answer was no, but he explained about how they work. And she laughed and she's like, "Oh, I see. They were trying to get it done for free." And he laughed. She's like, "Okay, now I know how to answer that." Now, as a manager, you may think, okay, well, if a question comes in, my team member doesn't know what it is, whether I'm in a shipping store, in a corporate environment, anything like that, then it should be up to the team member to ask me what happened. That shows initiative. And that may be the case. But also, you may at times be like the manager here who first answering it was saying, I took care of it, don't worry about it. Because you may feel like you have a million things to do and doing the work and then explaining it isn't something you have time for. So knowing as a manager, it's really important to be able to take that time and when someone asks you what happened, explain what the answer was. But also knowing there are times when team members aren't going to ask you, even if they would like to know the answer, because they may be worried if you are busy or it's obvious that everyone's busy, them taking up the time and they may think, well, I'll ask them later, but they don't, because plenty of times you get on and they're not thinking at 6 o'clock about the question that came in at 1:30. So as a manager, things are going to happen, especially if you were, like most managers, promoted because you were really good at a job and now you're managing the team. I've done videos about how complicated that can be. But you may know the ins and the outs of things. But especially when you have new team members that are trying to learn it, or existing team members that just don't know the answer to the question. One of the most helpful things you can do when you have to take work over or have to do something to chip in at least is to tell someone what the answer was and what you did or what the outcome is. That can look like all sorts of things. In a corporate environment, it may be a situation of, okay, well, there's a question, but I as the manager, I'm really going to have to ask my boss, so I'm going to go in and have that conversation with them. Well, your team member, often they have no idea what things happen. When you're a team member at any level, when your boss is having a conversation with their boss, it can feel like the Wizard of Oz. You have no idea what's happening behind the curtain. And so as a manager, you may have conversations with leaders all of the time, and it may seem really intuitive of, okay, well, I just ask a question, this is the conversation. But knowing whether it's an answer to something like, what do we do about passport photos? Or how did that decision get made? When you proactively come back to your team member and tell them what the answer was, what you said, how things went, what the answer was, if you're asking your leader something and they give you a yes or no, what that conversation is like as much as you can. When you share that yes, takes up more time than just doing it and moving on with life. But when you have that and explain that, you can give information, like now this new team member, she knew the answer to the passport photo question. And she may have to learn it more than once. Because when people are training, they may think they know it and then they do a million things and they can't quite remember what the right answer is. So sometimes people are going to have to see you do it more than once or ask you, okay, remind me again, what's the answer here? And so knowing as a manager that is a part of your job that can feel frustrating, especially no matter what you do when you're pressed for time. But when you take that time and give the answers back to someone and teach them, then over time, that's how you develop team members. Development doesn't always happen in these once a year annual formal conversations and performance reviews of what do you want to be. There are opportunities in everything you do. So whether it's you have that team member and you know the answer to that question as a manager, it may be that you take it and you come back and tell the team member. Or it may be, okay, you know what? If that team member wasn't doing anything at the time, hey, come with me, I'll answer the question, but you can hear how I answer it, how the conversation goes, and I'll tell them, hey, you know what, I'm going to take it over, but I'm training my team member, so I want to make sure they can hear. When you do things like that, at times you may think, well, the customers don't need to know what we're doing, but it can be really helpful for them to know, okay, I'm getting the right answer, but you're also taking the opportunity to train your team member. That's what it can look like when you're actually taking work over. But also when you're having a conversation with your boss, There may be topics that you can bring a team member with you and say, I want to not just tell my team member what the answer is, but see how these decisions get made. There will be some conversations where that's not going to happen, or you may have leaders yourself where they're not as open to that. But when you start to ask that and say, okay, sometimes we have these conversations and we have them and then it becomes like a game of telephone. I'll tell my team member, what if we give opportunities for them to see what the answer is? That's growth and development that really can happen in everyday conversations. Because as a manager, you're trying to get through your day-to-day. And in the last couple of videos, I've made ones about questions to start and end your day to really lead intentionally. But all throughout the day, there are things that they may seem super routine or the information, but they can be the opportunities for your team members to see how you make decisions, how you answer things. They can learn information, put it into their own voice. But when you do that, and when you do that proactively, rather than just making people ask you, that shows the level of leadership that really builds that trust with your team. That leads to things like you having more time to do things, because all of a sudden, over time, your team knows how to answer questions and feels more confident about it. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. So having that patience that trust means knowing that your team members may have to ask you more than once. But when you do that, no matter what your role is, whether you're shipping, a government agency, a nonprofit, in healthcare, anything, those are the opportunities that really stand out, that plenty of managers forget. And knowing one quick tip as well is, at times, you may be taking something over and there's not time in the moment, like maybe your team member and you are in different time zones, but using tools like whether it's screen sharing, if you're creating a new report, using a screen recording tool, if you have one authorized through your IT system, or doing things like taking notes of what you do and creating a guide for things like that. As a manager, you may think, okay, but if I do these things and all of a sudden I'm making lists of how I do my work, then I'm not going to be necessary as a manager. But that can be far from the case. Really, what you're trying to do is make sure your team members know how to make the best decisions possible when you're not right there, like shoulder to shoulder. And so doing things, whether it's capturing information or sharing it with them, doing that can be things that some people never experience in their whole careers. But when you take the opportunity to do that, you can change the careers of those team members and all of a sudden, your own as well. You may think, okay, when you do something, telling someone what you did, that seems like common sense. But when it comes to work, see how many things you do or somebody else does, and you don't understand what they actually did, or you aren't taking the time to go tell a team member because you're human and you get busy. But so a lot of what I do and what we do at Manager Method is showing how you can just take quick pauses and pause and consider how to make ripple effects for your team members to really drive their performance and drive their careers and your own. If this is helpful at Manager Method, we have things like Manager 101 foundational course. You can take it for yourself. We have Manager 201, a strategic leadership course. We have Employee Success for individual contributors. And for organizations, we have a full leadership development platform that gives your managers things to help them lead and have practical skills of what to do and say. We have things to have cohorts to really bring those to life for your teams. So in the description, you can check those out for yourself or for your organization. Because sometimes things that seem like common sense, you just need a nudge to make sure that they're actually common.